Hey, Stoney here. I'm here with Clean Leadwood, and this is Mechabellum Weekend Tournament America. Let's go. Alright, so at the bottom here, we have Steel Sane playing as a Sabertooth specialist. He's up against OnlyFans playing as a Fortified specialist. And it's going to be Ball Crawler up against Tarantula Crawler. And it looks like Steel Sane, who is traditionally a very standard type of player, chooses not to go aggro with the ball crawler, but instead just going to go very standard board here. Now, how do you feel about this, Clint?
Yeah, I think this is going to probably what we're going to see from Steel Sane is him selling out of the balls from round one and probably developing more Sabertooths later on. The reality, right, is that if we can make sure that the Sabertooths aren't shooting chaff, they are such a good answer to these tarantulas early on. And the reality, right, is that we could do something like Arclight range and Sabertooth range, and we have like a pretty okay comp. I can scale pretty okay. So that's what I suspect out of Steel Sane here. But we'll have to see. How do you feel about Saber Spec? That is a new specialist as of 0.9, and there's been some grumblings about it. How do you feel about it?
I think it's very strong. I think Sabertooth right now is probably the strongest unit that you can get for round two. And I personally want Sabertooth to work. I think Sabertooth is just such a cool unit in its design and all in its original intended purpose, but it's just too bad that the devs had to take Double Shot out on the first version of Sabertooth and gave it photon emission. But now the photon emission is with the Farseer and Double Shots back onto the menu, making the Sabertooth a solid anti-giant unit. I'm just very excited to see it work. I haven't seen much of the Sabertooth in the games that I played, except me. Like, I play a lot of Sabertooth, but I really think it's a super strong unit. One tip when you're playing Sabertooth, especially in later rounds, is to get temp speed every single round. Or if you can, if there's a speed spec card dropped, take the speed spec drop, because Sabertooth's biggest weakness is that it does not have enough range versus a giant with range like a melting point or fort. So it needs to compensate that with the speed. And once it gets into the firing range with double shot, it can comfortably contest things like forts or Vulcans or even melting point.
Oh yeah, completely agree. Right, once you get a couple levels on there, get range double shot. That thing's a giant killer. It'll punch right through. Like if we look at the damage it does right now, 6,000, right, and that's before any sort
of upgrade, right? Level 1, right? It's just insane.
Yeah, just raw DPS. It's the highest DPS in the game out of all units, believe it or not, and yeah, it's a real powerhouse. I was asking a buddy earlier today what they think the strongest round two drop is, and I think both me and him agree that it's the level 2 Saber round 2. Level 2 Saber round 2 is such a big unit with so much HP and hits like a damn truck. I'm curious though.
3 shots a tarantula.
Yeah. 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 And then, what's cool, right, is that it also has this option of going into AM, which is relevant here because a level 2 Stormcaller pack was offered, right? So, sometimes, right, when you can't always turn off the Stormcaller, AMs are really a tool to just delay a Stormcaller. And that's just as true with a Sabertooth. And it's a strong utility tech that is very cheap. This unit, right, has some very cheap techs, in double shot being only 100, anti-missile being only 200, and the more expensive techs being field maintenance and range at a more reasonable 300. So we've got some strong stuff here. What's really scary for OnlyFangs, though, is that this Sabertooth on the left leveled from the last round. A lot of tempo.
lot of tempo, is probably going to two-shot this tarantulas with a bit of help from sledgehammers. I mean, I'm looking
Yeah.
at this board and I'm just giggling inside, right? Still saying it's making me so happy with this tank-only composition, which is three squads of fans. I think if this works, it's going to be a glorious battle.
Yeah. And if you look, right, the Sabertooth on the left with heavy armor basically means it has it's basically comparable to a level 3.5 Sabertooth in terms of HP now. It's 54,000 HP. There is nothing on the field that Only Fangs has that can deal with that in any sort of reasonable amount of time. So, yeah, and look, that spider gets instantly popped, and so does the other one.
And we still have crawlers left on the ground, which means on that side there's no chaff clear, and that's going to force a lot of wasted stormcaller missiles.
Yeah, and if things weren't looking bad for Only Things already, the Sabertooth on the right has now leveled. So this tempo unit is developing more and more tempo, and the damage is really starting to stack on. I think the only way to really answer this sort of scaling unit early on in this mid game is to quickly rush into giants. Nano Repair coming out, level 2 Saber with Nano Repair. I There's not much, but Steel Stain ignores that. He goes for subsidized staying, and maybe what we see here is Saber staying, and this is like one of my favorite comps currently. I think Saber staying Farseer is incredibly strong. I think Saber staying Spider is also incredibly strong. How have you been enjoying this composition? Have you been playing around with it much?
I love it. I played it myself. I think the first round, if Still Saying wants, he can always take the missile interceptor. But I'm just looking at the board here. There's only two squads of Stormcrawlers, so he doesn't need a tech for it. He could probably just put down two AM devices, especially the one on the left hand side. I wonder if OnlyFans wants to level that to level 3, because if it does, then the AM device will shut it down completely. Um, Anyways, back to Saber Stain. Super strong. I love it. And I think Stain is in a great position in the current meta, partially because of his anti-missile capabilities, but the other way is because of the crawlers loose. Because with loose crawlers, there's no real good answer. Like, the arc lights are no longer effective. Tanks are completely garbage against loose crawlers. Mustangs is probably the only units that can still deal reliably against the crawlers, and with so many crawlers on the board, I wouldn't be too surprised if only Fang clicks loose. If he runs it, and he does run it.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at Steel Stain's tax on the Mustangs, I think it's kind of interesting to note some of the stuff he's running here, right? He's running anti-missile range, splash, and AA. I feel like that's like a purely utility build. Like, he's something that I've mentioned to a couple people recently is I feel like the retooling of AM on Mustangs was this idea of making the Mustang a more supportive unit, when in the past, right, it has always been this like hard carry, late game carry. And while it can still late game carry just fine, I kind of like the direction it's going. I kind of like this idea of it being this like anti-missile, anti-chaff unit, and I would like to see that design space, explored a little more. How do you feel about that? Do you think with the recent AM retooling that it is filling a more niche role and a more unique role compared to the unit and how it used to be?
I think so. I mean, it's interesting because we kind of seeing, like, when by we, I mean those of you who's played this game for a while, and if you remember back in the days, right, Mustangs with some of those really high level items, advanced fire control for one, it was just ripping everything apart, and it was very strange because Mustang, whether it's by design, by its looks, I mean they're just kind of light, like, for the lack of better terms, they're light tanks. They're support units by design. And when players start to play them as the main carry, it just feels very weird. But now I like it a lot more as it kind of settles in its position as a support first. DPS second type of unit. So I really I like this I like this design. Now looking at the round here, the last round, the reason that Steel Saint barely won that round was because of the Stormcrawlers. If you click onto those two Stormcrawlers, you notice the one on the left has the highest damage in the game, highest damage of the round. Not the highest kill, but last round it did almost 68,000 damage. And the one on the right, with being just level 1, has the second highest of in-game damage and round damage. So I think if Steel Saint actually clicks on them, he would say, okay, I'm going to need to get either anti-missile devices or something to negate that much damage.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree, and we have quite a few options to deal with anti-missiles, right? We can just build anti-missile sentries. We can build the anti-missile tech on our Sabertooths. We can also just click AM on our Stangs. It's been recently retooled. We were just talking about it, and I think it's in a very good spot right now.
Absolutely. And I think the AM on the Stangs is probably a very good way to go. I mean, with so many squads of Stangs, they're going to take seconds to clear the entire volley and to get back to shooting everything else.
Mm-hmm. And realistically, right, outside of those Stormcallers, there isn't really anything to deal with what's being presented on Steel Saint's board. So if we can blank that, things get really hard. And here is, I think, a key piece to this comp, and I really hope Steel Saint takes it, is a level 3 Farseer. I think what ends up happening, right, is one, level 3 Farseers, I think, is a very important breakpoint. I feel like the damage is just absurd at that rank for that unit. But also...
He didn't take it.
Yeah. But it also has AM capabilities, and it also has radar capabilities. And I think we got some cool stuff there. But yeah, Steel Saint goes for his tried and true melter point, or rather melting point. And we're all a little sad about it.
Well, very sad. You know what that means? It means that Steel Saint doesn't trust that the Sabertooth is going to get the job done when it comes to anti-giant. And this is why he's got the melting point. Shame on you, Steel Saint. Now, anyways, jokes aside, back to the game. If you click on the Stormcaller on the left side, once again, you notice that 105,000 damage for the last round. If that doesn't tell you that you need at least a 100 supply AM device, I don't know what will.
Yeah. Don't show the people on the Discord that one, huh? But we see melting points also coming out for OnlyFangs in front of the towers. This is, I believe, going to be an attempt at an answer for these Sabertooth. But what ends up happening, right, is that these tanks can easily run interference. These Mustangs provide the chaff clear that we need. And then, right, we have the option of going double shot, which not only cracks the spiders in one shot, but it also does a chunk of damage to these melting points, right? So, for example, we have 13,000 damage on that right blue saber. If that saber double shots this melting point, it is at a third HP. It is not looking good. And this is what I love about Sabertooths. Look at him just pounding away, blowing up this melting point. Yeah, we're going to see that level 3 saber just turn in one shot. The debuffed melting point. You love to see it. And OnlyFangs is on death's door right now. Not really many options for him to come out of this, I think.
Very rough so far. I think in order for Steel Saint to really seal the deal here, I mean, you can have a couple options. Wasp is always a great option against this kind of comp in the late game. I mean, when in doubt, triple Wasp, right? Get 3 Wasps if you have shield, even better. It's going to tank everything that's coming from OnlyFans, allowing the tank line to just do a lot of work. I don't mind just having 3 more squads of level 1 sledgehammers as late arriving chaff as well. Right now on the OnlyFans board, really the only thing that's good against that kind of units is 1 level 2 marksman, which can one-shot them, and everything else. I mean, I guess the tarantulas, they're okay. Finally, we have AM devices coming down, finally realizing the amount of destruction the Stormcrawlers brought to the table. Yeah, I mean, feels it feels like a slam dunk for Steel saying this round. It's just I don't know what OnlyFans can actually do here.
Yeah. And we're talking about insane Stormcaller damage, but let's take a look at that level 4 Sabertooth.
Oof.
235,000, almost 250,000 damage over the course of this whole game. Just an absolute powerhouse, punching way above its weight class and bringing down those giants as they should.
Mm-hmm.
Just watched a spider instantly explode.
Yeah. These later round fans are really doing a lot of work, causing a lot of distraction here.
They're huge. These poor spiders are doing everything they can to hold off the tide of these Sabertooths, but it is very quickly closing in. And we're about to see a Sabertooth absolutely delete things on the left side.
Oh, it's a Sabertooth. Oh, 1 and 2. There it is.
That's the game. Sabertooth staying. It is the real deal, baby. I love this comp. I think it's so sick.
Anyways, if you're not jumping back into the game right away, I highly recommend this video. Check it out, and I'll see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics. Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress. The battlefield's alive with swarms.